There's a lot of different Procreate brushes, right? It's like whole world, and if download all Procreate brushes existing, I guess lifetime isn't gonna be enough to just try it out. You know, I always say that brushes aren't a big deal. You don't create it because it's absolutely necessary. It's just a comfort zone. It's just wait, we need a sec. Let's just try to paint something using Procreate default brushes only. As a brush for sketching, I picked this brush pen from calligraphy section. That's already kind of uncomfortable. It feels more like a real pen than my sketching brush I used to work with, so I guess it's gonna be more messy than usually. It can actually even be an advantage if you feel like more messy comic style, because my sketching brush is way too flowing. If I want to get a messy sketch, I need to stylize it intentionally, and here we just naturally have it. And since it's my first time using this brush for sketching, it's even more messy than it could possibly be. I'm sure if I'd always use it, consistently worked with this pen brush at this sketching stage and get used to it, it can actually be a pretty good brush for outlining and sketching. I think I'm gonna use this one at the rendering stage too. And it's time for coloring. I start with one single main color first, and the brush I use at this stage is usually my main shapes brush from my custom set. It's transparent enough, but also pretty opaque when I need. And I think I found something pretty similar. It's default flat brush. The opacity is perfect, very close to my custom brush. The shape is not round, which is a good thing too. My brush has a shape of more like an oval, similar to this one than to other round brushes. It's only I don't like this square shape it leaves at the end of the hatching. I think I'm gonna erase it in process or something and give it needed shape where it needs. Now with the flat brush, I'm gonna add main shading, and I usually blend it a little in process too. Not all the shadows on all the sides. I leave some sides to be rough and blend some which are naturally more smooth areas, some smooth transitions from light to shadow. For blending, I picked default soft airbrush from airbrushing section. I don't even remember how I created my custom blending brush. I don't know what is it I did, what's the settings, but this default brush feels so uncomfortable to blend with. In contrast with the custom brush I have, I guess I can get used to it too in this today's process, but it's more like blurring and not blending, but I don't get it because the shape is almost exactly the same, so I suppose it's all about the settings. At this stage, I only use one color to bring the shadows. It kinda looks like monochrome painting. This way, it's easier to focus on shading only, on various darkness. Picking a lot of different colors at this stage is confusing. I prefer to bring it later. After shadows, I add most dark areas, and with the shape of the flat brush, it's also kinda messy, and that's fine. It even looks more artistic this way. And I think that's exactly what I want to see more in my style. But I'm a perfectionist, and it's so hard to me to accept these things, random hatching, not perfect shapes in my paintings. I'm trying to overcome it, because my art used to look so polished at first, so refined. I don't like that. I didn't like how it looked at the final stage. I like it to be more messy and simple. I mean, when I take a look at someone's art, which is messy and simple, I adore it. But when it comes to my process, I can't stand any imperfections, and when I'm right in the middle of the process, especially. I'm trying to overcome it, as I said, really, and I think there's been a bit of progress lately. So, this default flat brush can be a huge help for me personally too, and for you probably if you feel the same about your art and your process. To bring more colors, I picked default soft brush from airbrushing section. If that would be my custom set, at this stage I use my same brush I use for blending. It's a big smooth brush like this one. I want these shapes to be a little darker but still defined, so it's flat brush I pick again. And I think I'm starting to get used to it, to the shape. It creates nice rough borders where I need, and it's getting easier to control the shape. In my usual process, I use lasso tool a lot, but today with this one, I try not to, because that would just break the whole point of today's practice, because I want to test default brushes first. So I mainly use brushes, but sometimes I still do use lasso tool when I need to define some specific areas, reflexes especially at this stage, because with reflexes, it's really important to control the opacity of reflex, control its location, and lasso is a perfect tool here. With flat brush, I add even more beige, almost orange color on top of the main layer. It creates nice transition from shadow to light. I don't feel like adding it with soft brush because it'd be too much of blur effect. So I paint with flat brush by the direction of the shapes, by the direction of the facial structure, skull structure. Same with this cast shadow on the neck. Instead of blur, I want to see here some more shapes of the shadow. And finally, it's time for hair. I always use lasso as a main tool for painting hair, especially when it comes to the shape and the random tiny hair all around. But before that, I give it some basic shading with lasso tool again, usually. But this time, let's use this flat brush to keep testing it. And I'm gonna paint brows with brush at this stage as well, but guess what tool I usually use for that? That's just so uncomfortable. Lasso do helps a lot with perfectly sharp shapes, and I love to give it to my characters, and since I almost didn't use it today, I think she's gonna look a little different from what I usually do. At least she's gonna look a little smoother, but today I try to add this type of a contrast I usually add with rough shapes created by Lasso, but with simple shapes instead, created with brushes this time. It's pretty rough and sharp too, so I kinda like it either way. Not gonna do it for hair though, no alternative ways here, I just do it as usual, because if sometimes with my custom brushes I add shadows without lasso, I never paint hair in any different way. Any brushes are just uncomfortable to me to use at this stage. Gonna use soft brush on multiply layer to work with darkness a little, because she's too light for now. There's a lot more contrast I need to see here. I picked the soft airbrush because I don't need any more shapes here. I just need to make some areas to look darker without any new hatching on top of it. I always paint jewelry as simple shapes. I don't like to overwhelm this kind of details because I need all the focus to be on face here, on the character itself, and painting jewelry and stuff like that too detailed means taking this focus off the face. It's just creating this overwhelming effect, so I also prefer not to blend anything here, not to make it look too realistic, just a couple of rough lights and shadows, which makes it to set naturally on the character's neck. This time it's these shadows under the necklace. Sometimes I just literally copy the object, would be this necklace this time, and put it under the necklace, filling it with one color, shadow color, and just like that, I have a complete shadow with needed shape. But this time, the shadow is a little different from the necklace, so I just manually paint it. Some more lights to emphasize the contrast on the color dodge layer. Color dodge is a great type of layer to bring some bright lights, bright colors to the painting, but sometimes it's complicated, hard to pick needed color, the color it leaves on top of the color of the skin this time. So I often work on that with curves to give it exactly needed hue. And now let's outline it a little. I use this brush I was using today for sketching part. It's just a question of stylization. It's not necessary at all, but I just like it this way. It gives even more contrast and this feeling of drawing, I don't know. I'm so tired of realistic stuff I created. I want it to look like drawing, so messy outlining is part of my rendering process now. Some random hair here and there, and some simple shapes to show the direction of hair, and my favorite part, finishing touches. Highlights especially. Guess what tool I'm gonna use now? Eye highlights are so tiny and have to be shaped perfectly, so she wouldn't look at the both sides at the same time. So I pay most attention here to the right shape and placement. The color is similar to white, maybe a little brighter sometimes, but same as with the reflexes, random hair. I paint highlight area, selected with lasso tool, as sort of transition from less transparent to most opaque, and these kind of horizontal highlights are almost transparent. Hair highlights similar, my favorite part, especially with this type of glowing, almost gold hair. That's just so nice to add these finishing touches here. To be honest, here I'd use my custom main shapes brush, because it's just a perfect fit. But instead, now I use simple shapes and kind of blend it into these shapes by the direction of the hair fall. And for blending, I use this hairbrush again. So I think we're done here. While Xiu was painting, I was able to erase my makeup and stuff. I think it's time to confess. She's the artist, not I. The result is much more impressive than I expected. Honestly, I thought I'll show you that it's possible to paint with default Procreate brushes, but not more than just possible, you know. And I also didn't expect it to be so comfortable in process. The process was actually quite comfortable for me. And that's it, guys. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me that custom brushes aren't a big deal and we can still create good art with just default Procreate brushes. Because I think we pretty much can. See you in the next video.